Okay, thank you, Jill, very much. Council, we have a double header tonight. Welcome back again to the December 8th, 7 p.m. meeting. We're starting right at 7. Today's meeting is being held as a virtual meeting due to the declared emergency. This meeting may be streamed live as well as recorded and published on the Southwest Middlesex YouTube channel. Council, I'll ask for a disclosure of any pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof. Are there any? Seeing none, we will begin the meeting with a land acknowledgement. We begin this gathering by acknowledging that the lands upon which we meet is the traditional territory of First Nations people. We convey our respect and thank them for their contributions to our culture, our community, and our past and future partnerships. Number 3 on your agenda, Council, is there's a recommendation that the agenda be accepted as circulated. Are there any errors or additions or inclusions? Seeing none, the chair will entertain a motion that the agenda be accepted as circulated. We've got Councillor Vink moved it and seconded by Councillor Bartlett. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please raise your hand. Motion is carried. Council, number 4 on the agenda are delegations and presentations. We have 2, 4A, the Lower Thames Valley Conservation Authority, Bill 229, and again 4B, Lower Thames Conservation Authority, the preliminary levy and budget. And Jill, are there presenters for those?
Yes, we have Mark Peacock here tonight.
Okay. I'll wait. Mark, you unmute yourself when you get the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Do you want us to show the slides or are you going to put them up? How do you want that to happen?
I'll let Jill answer that.
I'll make you the co-host, and that way you can run through it at your own pace if that works for you, Mark.
We'll share. Thank you very much. We'll share the screen and we will find where they are. I'm sorry about this.
No problem. Mark, do you have someone else with you that'll be assisting you?
Yes, I do, Mr. Mayor. It will be Todd Cassier, our Manager of Finance Administration. I'll just try sharing my screen again. For some reason, I can't find. What is that? No, that's not it. There's a show.
Looks good.
Yep, looks good. Yep.
And
first of all, Mark, I want to welcome you on behalf of staff and council and the citizenry of Southwest Middlesex. And Todd, we're delighted to have you here with us as well. So gentlemen, the chair will give you the floor and you can work us through 4A regarding Bill 229.
thank you very much. We appreciate being allowed to speak to council and to yourself, Mayor Mayhew. What we want to do, what I would like to do is first present Bill 229, and then Todd will go through our budget for this year. So Bill 229 is a bill that is moving the Conservation Authority from its current levying position to a position where we have mandatory programs defined by the province, and then we have other programs that are not defined as mandatory by the province, but that we can offer with an agreement with the municipality so that we can levy for those programs. So our mandatory programs, we provided information in the past and a number of times to through your staff to council on the mandatory programs. They tend to be natural hazards, our conservation areas, management of our lands, and source water protection and monitoring programs. What isn't mandatory is our stewardship and our education programs. And to do those programs, we will have to have an agreement with council and your staff with regards to how we are going to run those and how we are going to levy for those programs. To allow that to happen, the province has brought forward 3 regulations, and there's a number of more regulations that will come. One is, the first regulation is describing what those mandatory programs and services are that will be levied in the old way, which is approval by the board. Then we circulate to municipalities. If there's no concerns, then we move forward with the levy. Any other programs and services, we would have to have an agreement with council to do them. The transition plan is how we get to the new levy. So it is a plan that will say how we go from the current levying to the new levies that will be in place on January 1st, 2024. So essentially we have 2 years to figure out how this all goes, and a transition plan describes how that works, and it is going to our board next week, and then will be circulated to council for your review. And the final one was a levy regarding our conservation areas. Not a big deal because it was the same as what it has been in the past. One of the things that was in the original information we got from the province, and we have sent information to councils about, was a requirement to have a community advisory board. Now, we have many advisory boards. We have the Skeletal Village Advisory Board up your way to deal with the reconstructed Longhouse Village at the at Longwoods Road Conservation Area. And we have many other advisory boards. And they're specific to subjects where the board wishes to have input from the community on things like ice management in the bottom end of the Thames River. We have a board, we have an advisory committee that is made up that provides input to the board of directors on that. In their wisdom, the province thought it would be a good idea to have an advisory board that was a general board that basically reviewed everything our board did and commented essentially on what our board was doing. We felt that was somewhat undoable. It would be like having a shadow cabinet for a council. And we also felt it was somewhat disingenuous in that you're asking a board, an advisory board, to advise, but giving it no power. And we recommended that that not be happening, and that we still have advisory boards, but those advisory boards be based on the need and the merit of the issue. So the province agreed with that and took that out of the regulation, which was great. So the mandatory services and programs are natural hazards, conservation lands, including passive recreation, source protection, which we currently get 100% funded through the province. The other two, the Lake Simcoe one and the North Bay Mattawa Conservation Authority building code, is specific to the North Bay area. So the first three are the main ones: natural hazards, conservation lands, and source protection. There are a number of other requirements under the reg. One called this thing called a core watershed-based resource management strategy, and the provincial water quality and quantity monitoring network. And I'll go through those in a couple of slides so you can see what's required. Now,
Mark, if I could just interrupt you for a moment, there seems to be a static on your slide presentation, and I just want to make sure you've got the right package up here. I guess you do. Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt you on that.
No problem, Mr. Mayor.
Just confirm that you've got the right package up there. There was just a couple of comments that came in that might relate to that, but we're still on the first slide you presented. Are they supposed to be changing in front of us as you?
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. Maybe I should try. Now, let's see. Can you see the slides change now?
They're changing now. So if you want to bring us to where you are, you've done a great job of this presentation. There's no need to go back, but if you just could anchor where you left off and then move on from there.
Yeah, I left off at slide 4, which were the mandatory programs and services. Yep. So slide 5 are in the package from the province. In the mandatory services and programs regulation, there are 6 requirements of the Conservation Authority. And these requirements are things we have to provide by December 31st, 2024. And they are an ice management plans, which we already have, so that's not a big deal. Natural hazard infrastructure operational management plans, which we have probably in a slightly different way than described in the regulation. So we will have to redo some of our operational plans, but we do have operational plans. A natural hazards infrastructure asset management plan. Now that, as you're aware, as a municipality, I'm sure you have asset management plans. The Lower Thames Conservation Authority, for the last 3 years, have been working to build up reserves so we can implement asset management plans. So that when we move forward with an asset management plan, we don't have to look at significant increases immediately to our municipalities. We can actually draw down reserves to allow us to ease into asset management plans. And that has been the task of the authority for a number of years now, to build up reserves so that could happen, rather than creating a point in time where we have to charge significantly more to maintain our assets because we don't have an asset management plan in place. We are on track to do that. So this is not something that is going to be a big problem for us, but it is something that we'll have to talk to you about. And of course, even though we own a lot of lands and stuff, our big cost assets are our dams and pumps and those types of things on the landscape. So that is a big chunk of our asset management plan. We have to do a conservation area strategy and a conservation lands inventory of all our lands. And we have to do a thing called a watershed-based resource management strategy. The one good thing is at one time they were going to have us do a master plan for every one of our conservation areas, which we felt would have been extremely expensive to do. This is still going to be a problem. We are going to work with you to make sure that this isn't a major change in our levy to make these deliverables happen that are required by the province. The watershed-based resource management strategy will be the new strategic plan of the Conservation Authority. So we are coming to the end of our last strategic plan. We were planning on doing this anyways, and therefore we will be couching this within the guise or within the terms of a strategic plan. And we believe we can do a lot of this under the budgets we currently have. So those 6 things have to be provided to the province by December 31st, 2024. And as you might expect, there is no money from the province to do that, and therefore it will fall on municipal levy. The mandatory programs that are the category 1, which are the mandatory programs, are eligible for the general municipal levy as it currently exists. But category 2, which are services required by the municipality, or other programs, services that are recommended by the authority, which is category 3, need to have an agreement with our municipalities. There will be some additional pressures. We hope and we are working to the point that we will have only increases based on things like cost of living, rather than significantly changing the program while still delivering what the province has given us. So we are working to make sure that we aren't creating more budgetary problems for our municipalities. We really want to stress, and we have been stressing to the province, that they're asking us for a lot of stuff and they need to be part of the solution in providing funding. So when does this all have to happen? The transition plan has to be delivered to the province by December 31st. You will get it later on next week after the board meeting on the 16th of December. We have to create an inventory of programs and services. This thing is basically we have back 5 years in our budgets, restate them according to the programs and services that the province has said, and then show you what we've spent according to the new categories that the province has given us. This is a very large project, and we will do it, but it will be challenging. Once we get into this, by the time we get to July of next year, we will start providing quarterly reports to you at council and to the people in the public regarding how we're doing, what these things are going on. So we're going to create quarterly reports between July and October of 2023. If things can't be put together for the transition date of January the 1st, 2024, we can on October the 1st, 2023 request an extension. So we will talk to you about that if that's needed. We believe that we can provide a package to each municipality that essentially provides the services we have right now, along with what we need to provide to meet the requirements of the province with a very, very minor increase in levy. So by December 31st, we got to provide all those 6 deliverables to the province. One of the first things we want to look at, and we've been working with a number of municipalities, is coming up with a planning services agreement. Because we do provide a lot of services to municipalities regarding natural hazards, natural heritage review, and other elements, and some municipalities ask for EA review, those types of things from the Conservation Authority. By putting this clearly in agreement and trying to get that done by middle of next year, it puts us in a really good place to continue to get any agreements that we need for the year after that. So there are some actual approvals we'll need from you regarding agreements. In the timeline, it says we need those by the 1st of January 2024, but the reality is we have the City of London and the Municipality of Chatham-Kent that their 4-year budget cycle requires us to have everything together for them by June 30th, 2023. So we will be working with you and with your staff to try to get all the agreements and stuff by June 30th, or at least have agreements that are sound enough that we feel that we can move forward with the city and with the Municipality of Chatham-Kent. We are hoping to have the same agreement with every municipality. As you can imagine, I'll give you an example. Longwoods Road Conservation Area. If one of the municipalities says, I don't want to pay for Longwoods Road Conservation Area, for the programming there, how do we say that the people of, let's say, Strathroy-Caradoc, can't go to Longwoods Road Conservation Area because they're not paying for it? And the programming, because it's part of the education program. There are a number of hurdles and a number of issues with just even understanding how we get through this process. I don't think the province fully understands that a conservation authority is all people in a watershed working together to have services for everybody in the watershed. And if one municipality were to jump out of a service, how would you ever provide those services to the other people in the watershed? So, we want to provide a package to you that makes sense financially, that has very limited increases in levies like we've tried to do over the last few years, and continues with that route forward with agreements with you. So the transition plan and agreements will be challenging. You have your budget processes and timelines. We will work with your staff to meet your timelines and meet your expectations. We want a good relationship. I believe we have a good relationship with you and with your staff. We wish to continue doing that. We will be coordinating with neighbor CAs so that you aren't seeing apples and oranges. We have one municipality with 5 conservation authorities. Just think of the challenges they are looking at trying to get through this process. So we are working with all the neighboring conservation authorities to have consistent transition plans and consistent types of agreements, so the municipality isn't got something different in every little piece of their jurisdiction. We will keep records. We will maintain a website so that you can have information as we go ahead. So it's going to be a challenge over the next 2 years and a month to get through this. We are continuing to work away at it. We've done a lot of work already. We've stayed within budget, and we will continue to do so. And Mr. Mayor, I'd be happy to answer any questions you yourself or council might have.
Thank you, Mark, very much for that presentation. Council, please, if you have any questions you'd like to direct towards Mr. Peacock, just please ask the chair through the chair, and we'll certainly try to get the answers for you. And I'll just watch your hands. I think my screen's coming back, and I think I have almost everybody. Council, any questions? Yes, Councillor Vink, go ahead.
Mayor Allen, I just a comment to Mike, to Mark. The Magic Lights program at Longwood Conservation Area was a real nice display. I was there Monday night, and thanks for your effort.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good point, Martin. Councillor Vink, thank you very much. I haven't seen that yet, and I must get that on my radar. Any further questions? Seeing none, I think we'll proceed with Todd's presentation on the budget. Mark, you've done when you don't have a lot of questions, it's a sign that you made a very capable presentation. So Todd, I'll hand the floor over to you and walk us through the draft preliminary budget of 2022.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and councilors. This is the I'll be presenting the 2022 draft preliminary budget. So I guess we start with the past processes. So normally in August, we bring the assumptions to the board reviews in October. Municipalities are circulated the draft budget and levy in October to December with presentations October to December, and then February we approve the final budget, which normally does not change from start to finish. This year was proved to be a little bit different. We get some recommendations from some of our larger municipalities as to the expectation of the increase. We did not get those for the August board meeting, so we could not provide it. So we ended up bringing it to we brought the assumptions and the budget itself to our October meeting. So, and of course, COVID-19 had its hand in there too for slowing things down. So general assumptions for our 2022 budget was a 2% total general levy increase. We had merit increases to staff and a 1% cost of living, which is probably a little low, but it's what we need to do to make our budget work. And then this allowed us to meet Chatham-Kent's recommended 2% increase and stay within the City of London's 4-year preliminary or budget requirements. So these are the negative impacts. So CPP, merit increases, cost of living and insurance, first big items. Those are direct costs. I'm sure everyone has to tackle these. So it's the same. The other ones are staffing, and a lot of that is funded by grants or increases in revenue. So we can go to the next slide. And these are the positive impacts. So obviously increased revenue and mostly grant funding. And then the offset is the 29,500 increase in levy. For comparison 2021 to 2022, our levy or our budget increased over $500,000, most of that in the stewardship area. So some big grants coming in that. And then our levy, you can see, increased from 1.477 to 1.506. So with the Chatham-Kent Special Greening and Flood Control Structures levy staying the same for both years. So each municipality gets a different increase percentage based on the CVA, the increase of your CVA compared to the other municipalities within our watershed. This is a calculation handed down by the ministry that I don't think anyone has ever really fully understood. So our range for the different municipalities went from 1.1% to 3.95%, with Southwest Middlesex being at 1.84. And then this is the actual levy for each municipality. So you can, yep. Well, that's all right. You can see Southwest Middlesex second from the bottom with an increase of 813 and 1.84%.
Which I believe was a total change of $813
Yep.
in the year, between the years.
And then non-municipal revenues increase. So this goes along with all the grant funding. You can see that this year we have 56.2% of our budget is non-levy items versus last year we were at 49.3. So large increase in grants in our stewardship programs. And then any Thank you. And any questions or comments?
Thank you, Todd, very much. Todd, if you'll give your screen up there and I'll be able to view council. If you want to give me back, that's great. We've got it open now. Council, Todd has given a good presentation there. Are there any questions regarding the budget that proposed budget, I should say, that he put forward? Well, Todd, I want to thank you very much. I'm not going to say too much because when I look at our increase on a comparative basis, Southwest Middlesex did reasonably well in that chart. So I'm not going to kick a gift horse in the mouth there. I think we have a very modest increase, and comparatively speaking, I think we did very well. But I want to thank both you and Mark for your presentations. We know sometimes the public doesn't know where their water goes and what river it empties into. And I think it's very important that we continue to convey the message of watershed matters. And I know our representatives on two authorities work very hard. So we're delighted to have your presentation and thank you once again.
Mr. Mayor, thank you very much, members of council. We appreciate this opportunity to provide information to you, and we thank you for your support.
Our pleasure. Good night, gentlemen.
Good night.
Council, may I have a motion that we received the Lower Thames Valley Conservation reports for information, just to have it documented? So moved, Councillor Cowell, moved by Councillor Scholdice. Any questions? All in favor that the reports be received for information? Thank you. We're on the consent agenda, Council. First, I want to thank everyone in Council who has picked up the phone or they're sat down at their keyboard and made inquiries about vouchers and other aspects of it. I trust that staff looked after your request, and it certainly expedites the meeting. I'll go through these. If any councillor wants any item removed, we'll move it to number 12, new business. November 4th, draft minutes of the budget. November 24th, council meeting minutes. December 1st, draft council meeting minutes. 5D, ladies and gentlemen, are Southwest Middlesex vouchers. Are there any questions or have they all been answered? That's good. And 5E, Middlesex County meetings, item of interest. I put a report in there for you to read at your leisure. Yes, Councillor Cowell.
I read in your minutes that you were discussing the, oh, sorry, I made a note about it, the Middlesex County official plan update. And I remember watching the progression with Ms. There was a discussion to make amendments to the official plan related to looking at smaller farm severances. How has that discussion taken shape? Can you give us any feedback on that, or has it not gotten to that stage yet?
Councillor Cowell, it hasn't really gone to that stage yet. And as you know, my feeling on that, I'm not bashful about expressing that I would like to see that brought into it. What I could say is that I wouldn't be entirely optimistic. I can assure you that I'll be a voice for that subject, but the Federation of Agriculture and many in planning regard that as kind of a sacred covenant of food production. And I think we have some difficult rows to hoe getting there, but I'll certainly apprise you of that. Yes, it is a little premature in that, but I can assure you that we'll certainly advocate for consideration on that. And I'll keep you abreast in further reports should any information come available. Yes. 5F, Switzer Drain Tribunal Decision, Council, that was circulated to you. Any items wish to be pulled out, failing which we will accept a motion that the consent agenda be received as presented. Councillor Bartlett, and seconded by Councillor Scholdice. Questions? All in favor? Carried. Jill, no committee of adjustment?
Not tonight.
Good. No public meetings? And Jill, you correct me if I'm wrong in any of these here. Fire, I don't believe there's a report tonight.
Correct.
And we have 8B, administration. I hope Sheila's with us tonight. Is she? Is Sheila with us? I don't see her on my screen.
She is. She's just joining it. Take the half a second.
Okay, no problem. We'll wait for her. And council, she'll be talking about the branding RFP results, and she will be with us momentarily. Sheila, if you unmute yourself.
Yeah, I am.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you very much for being with us tonight. I'll let you walk council through this report. We're looking forward to hearing it.
Okay, we received 4 quotes through the branding process this time. And they were reviewed with the help of Kara Finn from Middlesex County, who has had quite an extensive experience with branding through different positions that she's held. All of the RFPs were in on time. 2 were quite similar, and there were 2 that were quite a bit different from what we had proposed for our branding exercise through some professional discussions with other organizations. So the 2 that we have, the one that we have as the number 1, Mad Hatter, gave us the most complete package of information based on the RFP. They seem to understand the purpose and objectives of the proposal, and they were also the lowest bid that was in a fulsome situation. 2 of the RFPs sort of deviated a little bit from our RFP originally. One was just dealing with the visual aspect mainly, and the other one was more committed to visual and a social media presence. So those were the 2 that got a little bit of a lower grading with us, but the other 2, both Mad Hatter and I believe it was Amplify, were both fairly similar, and we just felt as a group that Mad Hatter had great experience and a very good package that they provided to us. And if there's any questions, I can try to answer those.
Okay, thank you, Sheila. Council, please direct any questions through the chair to Sheila. We'll try to get you an answer. Is there any? Yes, Councillor Cowell, go ahead.
Through the chair to Sheila, could you remind us of what the budget was?
Yes, through you, Mayor. Our budget was $30,000 for quite an extensive package, and all of them came in under budget or on budget.
Okay, thank you. That's good. Yeah. Yes, Martin, go ahead, please. Councillor Vink.
Thank you, Mayor. Alan, Sheila, when will we expect to have a report from Mad Hatter?
Thank you, Councillor Vink. Martin's frozen up with us temporarily, but I'll make sure that he gets your reply, Sheila. When can you expect that? The process will take about how long, and then there'll be a reporting period after that. And I'm sure there'll be consultation with the with both council and community. Do you have a crystal ball?
We do. They gave a very good project cost and timeline for us. Part 1, they expect to have completed, would have been the end of this month, but due to a little bit of lag in our timelines ourselves, I expect it would be mid-January, the end of January, for part 1 to be done. And that really is sort of the review of the existing and developing some key items. And then part 2, which would be the implementation of all those pieces, would be around the end of April of next year.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, any further? Yes, Deputy Mayor Wilkins, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. Sheila, I'd just like to congratulate you. I know you've worked hard on this, and I'm not sure what other committee members or staff members have, but I think branding is important for a municipality, and I think that we will see the result of that in a boost to maybe economic development with it. So I'm pretty excited about this, and so thank you. I would move the recommendation, Mayor Mayhew.
Okay, thank you. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Cowell, I see your hand. Councillor Bartlett, thank you for your support there, but Councillor Cowell had her hand up first. Questions, Council? The opportunity to ask questions through the chair to Sheila. Seeing none. Sheila, I just want to mention, and I thought the question might come up by council, that we had a ratepayer offer some opinions and help, Neil Johnson, earlier on that. Of course, Neil cannot do that report. He is not in his time frame or time schedule or actual mandate, but he said he would be very pleased to offer opinions and comment on it. And Neil has reached out to Sheila very recently, and I've been copied on it. So we'll certainly try to, when we engage the public, I'm sure all of you remember his talk to council, and we'll certainly bring him on board. We will not let one of our eager citizens let behind on that. He offered some opinions, and we'll certainly try to garnish them. Okay, no questions. I'll call the question to accept the report that the recommendation of council approve the proposal of Mad Hatter Technology in the amount of $22,525 for completing a branding exercise and strategy for Southwest Middlesex. Call the question. All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you, council.
Thank you.
Sheila, thank you very much for your work on that, Sheila. And Jill, you jump in here if I'm wrong. There's no building report. There is no finance report.
There's actually one additional administration report. Hopefully you got notice of that late this afternoon.
I do see it. Oh, yes. Administer. Oh, 8B. Yes. Declaration of authority with a request of Middlesex property transfer. Yes. If you could walk us through that, Jill, thank you very much.
Sure. Yeah, it is. It's apologies for the report being so late, but it was recommended by legal, given that we don't have all of the information quite yet from the other party's lawyer, but we expect it to be coming. Legal requested that council authorize authority for me to sign off, so that as soon as we've got that, the appropriate documents could be signed and then registered, and that transfer could go through.
Okay, council, any questions through the chair to Jill on this? On the property transfer? Seeing none. Okay, we will request that the CAO and the mayor be authorized to sign off on the dedication of authority with respect to the Middlesex property transfer. Can I have a motion to that effect? Thank you, Councillor Bartlett. Seconded, Councillor Vink. Questions? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you, council. Another one step ahead and new development. Thank you, Jill, for bringing that to my attention there. I had that down, but I missed it. No building report and no finance report. And Greg, we're down to operations, 8E on Southwest Middlesex Trillium revised report. If you would be kind enough, walk us through that. And I just remind all council that this is a sensitive topic at times when you're talking about landfills and the environment and some of the challenges we have ahead of us. So we certainly want to use discretion on the comments we make and the subjects that we bring up. So Greg, if you could be kind enough to lead us off, we'd like to hear from you.
Well, thank you, Mayor Allen, and through you to council. Do welcome Fabiano Gondam, who is, I can see him now on our screen, to our council presentation tonight. I will hold on here just quickly. We'll introduce Fabiano. Fabiano Gondam is a senior waste engineer with Golders Associate. He has 19 years of experience with landfill projects in Ontario. He is a professional engineer with a master's degree in civil environmental engineering from the University of Toronto, and is a certified manager of landfill operations with the Solid Waste Association of North America. Fabiano has completed more than 200 landfill projects in Ontario involving all aspects of landfill management, including investigations, designs, approvals, operations, capacity assessment, closure plans, monitoring, reporting and construction, quality assurance. He is the senior engineer for the Trillium landfill project and has been involved with this site since the beginning of the investigations that have gone on. Fabiano was also involved in presenting the information with regards to Limerick, and we move that one forward, and tonight is our presentation for Trillium. So I will talk just a touch on tonight's presentation. Fabiano will give us some information, start us off with some, as council is aware, we do have a full monitoring program that's in place for both Limerick and Trillium. So he will go over some of the monitoring results we've received in the last couple of years. And he will also speak a little bit about the current ECA and how those monitoring results are affected by that particular document. The other thing he will talk about is as part of council's direction, we'll talk about a full closure plan for Trillium, an interim closure plan for Trillium, and he will provide information to council with regards to the design and operations plan that was requested. So without further ado, I welcome a man that I've had the opportunity to work with. He's has done a great job for us, and we couldn't be today where we are without his expertise. So welcome, Fabiano, and look forward to your presentation.
Thank you, Greg. And Fabiano, we're just delighted that you are with us this evening. Well, I know maybe the news isn't all good, but it's been a long time. We've been waiting for this, and thank you very much for joining us, and I'll hand the floor over to you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Greg, for the introduction. So I will share my screen here. Let's see if that's gonna work. Can you see my screen?
Not yet.
No, okay, sorry. Yeah, we got there. Just give me a minute.
I didn't say he was a computer expert.
No, exactly. I don't attend those meetings very often either. So. Okay, no, but we're gonna. Okay, so I get a screen here, and yeah. I don't see my own.
Yeah, if
I can share my screen, Fabiano. You would just have to tell me when to move the slide.
Sure, please. Okay. Thank you, Jill.
No problem.
All right.
Good, we're up and running there.
We are, yes. So today, like Greg introduced, we're gonna give an update on the Trillium landfill, where we are, the work we did to date, and the management options. Next, please. And here's an agenda that Greg already mentioned some of the items, but what we're gonna see, we're gonna have a quick description of the Trillium landfill site for the ones that are not super familiar with the site. It's gonna be very brief. And then we're gonna review the key activities completed to date, a summary of the monitoring results, a summary of the Minister of the Environment's approval, and the landfill management options. Next, please. So the Trillium landfill is located at Trillium Drive in Glencoe. It started operations in 1971, and it stopped or closed in 2018, in the sense that stopped accepting waste for landfilling. And since then, it has been operating as a transfer station and yard composting facility. Next, please. Here's an aerial view, aerial photo of the landfill, where you can see on the right side there, you see the that dash line and the outline, the magenta. Yes, thank you. That would be the outline of the waste fill limit itself. And in the yellow is the property line. And you can see in terms of area, the magenta outline that we saw first in there is 4.5 hectares, or about 11 acres of waste fill area. The total area is 49 hectares, or 121 acres. It is very, relatively close to the New Beacon Creek. It's 43 meters in terms of, from the limit of the waste. Certainly the New Beacon Creek crosses the site. And in terms of land use surrounding the site is mostly agricultural lands, as we can see here. Yeah, next, please. Yeah, now we are seeing still an Aerophoto now zoomed in, and with a focus on that magenta line that we saw before. Now it's getting closer, and a New Beacon Creek on the right side with that line there. And in terms of orientation, you can see Trillium Drive is on the west, in that line on top. And the east, that's the other area of interest for this presentation, is at the bottom of the page. Of course, the north would be on the right, and the south would be on the left. In terms of distance from property lines, which is something very important from landfill management perspective and current Minister of the Environment regulations, you can see that is about, I guess you cannot see, you can sort of see it's very close there, right? You can see the red line is the limit, property limit, and the magenta line is very close. That distance we can see there is 6 meters. On the west, on the other side, is not that, we have more buffer, we have more lands there between the property limit and the waste limit, which is about 40-meter distance. To the south and to the north, you have a lot of land. It's not a concern. You have hundreds of meters, several hundred meters. So you are far away of any other or any third property. And at the bottom of the slide here, I put for context, I put the current requirements for new landfills and expanding landfills. The ministry would require a 100-meter buffer from the waste limit to the property line. On some occasions, or more on an exceptional basis, the ministry would accept a 30-meter buffer if it can be demonstrated that the landfill will not impact adjacent properties. Next, please. Now, moving to the key activities completed to date, is very brief. Is a high-level summary. In February 2018, we had the council's motion to temporarily close the Trillium landfill until further direction would be provided. And between October and December 2018, a few site activities were completed, including the topographic survey. We also met with the Minister of the Environment. Between Golder and the municipal staff, we met with the district office in London to discuss the monitoring program. They want to get involved. They provide input, and from that point we started working with them on this, if you can call, journey. And then from that point, we agreed on the location of the monitoring wells and we got them installed. And then from that point, we are ready to start collecting samples and send to the laboratory for analysis. And those samples would be collected from January 2019. That was the first monitoring event. And then from that point, spring and fall in 2020 and spring and fall in 2021 for a total of 5 groundwater and surface water monitoring events. And then back in June 2020, with all this data that we collected from the site that is required by the ministry, when you submit a design and operations report, we organized all that information, prepared a design and operations report, submitted to the ministry for approval, which was a requirement in one of their inspections that they did. And then the proposed options in the design and operations report for ministry approval was either an interim closure, also called mothballing, or continue landfilling for the next 10 years, essentially using the same waste footprint that you currently have, just put more waste on top, have a vertical expansion. And again, would give you another 10 years of capacity operating that landfill. And then now in September 27, 2021, the ministry issued the environmental compliance approval for the site for either interim closure or resuming landfill operations. However, they imposed various conditions that you're going to see today. Yes, so in summary, both options are on the table, yes, but you need to comply with certain options that you're going to review today. And now, before we go to the approval, I would like to summarize the monitoring results because that's very important, and that's the basis why the ministry imposed the conditions that we're going to see shortly. So it gives you more information on the site. We're not going to go through a lot of details, but you want to see where you are and maybe some numbers as well, just to give a bit more context. So in terms of groundwater quality, so there are 6 parameters that exceeded the trigger limits in at least one compliance monitoring well in most of the monitoring events. And you're going to see that information shortly. And surface water quality is not a problem. There was one isolated monitoring event that had one exceedance for unionized ammonia downstream of the landfill. That was in the spring of 2021. Now back in the fall, when you sampled again, that exceedance wasn't not there. So that's why I called isolated impact on the New Bighorn Creek. Only one event out of 5 in a 3-year interval. So at this point, there is no concern with surface water, but there are concerns and measurable impacts or exceedances in the groundwater. And this groundwater, by the way, I want to clarify here, this is a shallow groundwater. This is not a deep aquifer. The deep aquifer has a lot of clay there that is not impacted because of the natural clay, a very thick clay deposit. There's no concerns with that deep groundwater. It's really the shallow groundwater, the first 4 or 5 meters below ground that the water travels, that has that or carries that contamination, that landfill impact. Next, please. So now we're gonna just review give you additional information, what those monitoring results are showing. And I mentioned to you, there are 6 parameters that are exceeding, and that's the list of those 6 parameters. And on the second column there, where you see the trigger limit, is the Minister of the Environment limit that essentially tells you if you're below that limit, you don't have an exceedance, we are in compliance. But if you are above, and then you need to keep monitoring or maybe take some actions. So the for now, in some examples here, the first column, first row there, the total dissolved solids, we had in that well 201S, which is on the west boundary, that's by Trillium Drive. We had a minimum in those 5 monitoring events, minimum of 370 and maximum of 430 milligrams per liter. And both exceeds, you see everything in red means exceedance. Exceedance in this case is not that high compared to the trigger limit, but as you go to the other wells, especially the one downstream, the 203, that's the one that is only 6 meters from the site because the property line is very close. That is very high. You can see like 20 times higher than the exceedance, than the trigger limit. And then if you ask the question, how many exceedances we saw here, and the answer is in all of them, right? And it had 5 monitoring events, and we saw 5 exceedances. The next one will be the dissolved oxygen carbon, also measured in milligrams per liter. And there are not a lot of exceedance. It's not that concerning, and you can see it's not even double the exceedance. And in we had 4 exceedances in 5 of the monitoring events. Sulfate, some exceedances there. Yes, high downstream, upstream, not that high. But that was consistent in all 5 exceedances. And what you can see here too is very close, very consistent, almost measuring the same thing in the 5 monitoring events. They're very close, the minimum, the maximum. The range is very narrow there. Alkalinity was exceeded in every event. And manganese, there are some exceedances. They came high as well. And sodium, manganese, by the way, is a metal. Sodium is another metal. And sodium is high downstream. Is about 4 or 5 times the limit. So this gives you an idea of, essentially, yes, there is a consistent exceedance, and is high, not just a marginal exceedance, is high. And I can tell you, based on our experience and based on what we see in landfills, this is going to stay for a long time if no action is taken. Next, please. So now we're going to go, now that you understand where we are with the groundwater and surface water, now let's review the Ministry of the Environmental Approval Summary that was issued now September 2021. Condition 3.3, it requires a completion of the interim closure activity by October 31st, 2024. Essentially, you have 2 construction seasons ahead to complete this work. And essentially, if you ask what are those closure activities, essentially put a cap, a soil cover on top. And that soil would have to be clay and would have to be imported because there is not much soil available. There is some soil, that berm, in some areas you could source some soil, but not a lot. The majority would be imported. Condition 3.4 allows you to reopen the landfill, but there are some conditions. You can only open if a report is submitted to the ministry for approval, including confirmation that the site is in compliance with the water standards, which you are not at this point. Therefore, you cannot open the site until you fix these exceedances. Also, you need to confirm to the ministry that a stormwater management pond was approved by the ministry under separate approval and constructed, and other administrative requirements are completed, such as notification to residents, date that the landfill will open, and revisions to the design and operations report as needed to reflect the operation. So once you submit that, if the municipality is in a position that everything is in compliance to the water standards, and the municipality decides to reopen the landfill, And then you could, but you still need to implement those or comply. Yeah, follow those steps, submit the report, confirming that you did. And then from that point, the ministry is going to review and issue an approval, and you can reopen the site. Next, please. Condition 7.6 establishes the groundwater and surface water monitoring program. Essentially, the locations, the parameters that are going to be sampling in the spring and fall for each monitoring event. And then there is also a condition about the implementation of a remediation action plan. And it tells you when to implement that remedial action plan, which is when you have 2 or more parameters that exceeds the trigger limit in 3 consecutive sampling events at any specific monitoring wells, which are the compliance wells that you saw in the previous table for groundwater. And this is condition 7.8. And I put in brackets here your current situation. Yes, again, you have 6 parameters that have exceedances in 5 consecutive events. So that means, based on the condition, you'd be required to implement a remedial action plan. Then another condition for surface water is something similar, but there is no issue, so we don't need to focus on that. But that exists in case it becomes an issue. In the unlikely event that becomes an issue in the future, there is also a mechanism to deal with that surface water exceedance. Next, please. And here's a process to implement a remedial action plan. Just going one step further, if you're thinking, okay, what I need to do to implement that remedial action plan is also spelled out in your approval. First, you notify the non-compliance issue to the ministry. And then in terms of timing, when do you notify? Yes, there is a mandatory timing for that notification, which is as soon as you complete 3 consecutive monitoring events that are exceeding the limits, counting from September 2021, date of the approval, which is in the fall of 2022. That is the latest that you are mandated to notify the ministry. Now, there is another option here would be a voluntary timing for notification. You don't have to, but you could pre-notify the ministry on the likelihood of the non-compliance issue rather than waiting for the fall of 2022. And the reason we are putting this option here is because you saw the numbers there, that those exceedances are there to stay. Very likely they're going to be there in the fall. Next year in the fall, you're going to see very similar results. I even gave you an example with a very narrow range. You're going to see that repeating over and over. So is a question of time. You're going to need to notify the ministry and start the process of the remediation action plan. And then from that point, from the notification, you'll be submitting details to the ministry, how that action plan would look like. What would be the actions that you wanna complete or take, and when? What is the proposed timeline for implementation? And as long as you have that, based on our experience, the ministry would be willing to know very soon. As soon as notify them, they are gonna be asking right away for a plan. They want to know the details. They want to know what's happening. They want to know more, and they want to work together and review and be part of the decision what is acceptable or not acceptable in the timeline for implementation. And they recognize that the municipalities, they go through budget cycles, and they recognize you cannot bring a contract the next day, but at the same time they want firm commitments. Next slide, please. So here are one step further, how those options would look like. Just to give you the full picture here today. One option would be the acquisition of properties that are impacted. You would not buy the entire property. You would buy either a piece of the land, a piece of the property, or the groundwater rights, and the current owners would keep the use of the surface. And that would be the two properties on the east and the west, the top of that page and the bottom of that page. That would be the recommended option for consideration by the municipality. And here are the details for that option. It's very common approach applied for natural attenuation landfill facilities. It has the greatest certainty in achieving environmental compliance immediately after the execution of the agreement with the property owners. At this point, the cost to purchase the land or even the groundwater rights are unknown. But we can tell you the cost to conduct the desktop modeling and the investigation, meaning drilling, sampling, and testing of groundwater quality to support the decision on the extent of the property or groundwater easement acquisition would cost $100,000. In terms of annual cost for, in general, operation maintenance, there is minimal annual cost. This option would certainly require administrative effort, and there will be negligible impact to the monitoring costs if the compliance wells get transferred to the new boundaries. And the risks here with these options are in case the property owners are not willing to sell their properties or groundwater rights, this option falls apart. At the same time, this option does not address the inter-enclosure requirement to close the landfill site on a temporary basis or mothballing the site by October 31st. That cost is estimated at $1 million. This is an estimate, an engineer's estimate, essentially an opinion of likelihood of cost. We think would be in this ballpark based on the volume of soil, topsoil and seeding, and the cost to import soil. And so if this option falls apart for any reason, or maybe you implement only in the east and the west doesn't go through, you have other options. The next option we can go in the next slide, please, which is a combination of a few measures that you could take. One would be the relocation of the composting and wood waste piles to another on-site location that would not cause impact to the monitoring wells. And you also could do very minor site drainage improvements to promote positive drainage away from the monitoring wells, and the construction of an underground physical barrier to leachate migration on both east and west boundaries. And then as part of the closure, you either go to the inter-enclosure activities or you go to the final closure activities if the municipality decides to no longer be interested in reopening the site. And the cost for everything included here, put the site in compliance and do the closure, is either $1.9 million for the remedial actions and the inter-enclosure, or if you want to go with the final closure, that would cost another $500,000 on top of that. That means $2.5 million for those works. With that, I think that will be the end of my presentation. I'll be ready for questions if there are any.
Good. Well, thank you, Fabiano. That was simplified to our level of understanding, and we thank you very much for that. It's been long awaited, and we appreciate it. Yes, we will ask council for questions. And through the chair to Fabiano, and council, please raise your hand and we'll try to get you an answer. Yes, Councillor Vink, followed by Deputy Mayor Wilkins.
Thank you, Mayor. Alan, to Fabiano. We already own the property on the east side and the west side. Does that make a difference on the report?
Are you saying you already own that property?
Can I just share the screen
Yeah.
again?
Yeah.
Just so you can see the east and west versions that Fabiano's using.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yes.
Yeah, you may be thinking north and yeah.
You can see that now.
Yes, Jill, we can. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really the west we are talking would be by Trillium Drive and east on that forested area. Yes, I agree. You own the right and left. Probably the orientation is a bit confusing here. And like I said before, there's no issues on that left side and right side of that photo, only on the top and bottom.
Okay. Martin, I think there is an understanding of the lands we own, and of the four sides, there are two that seem to be the subject of discussion. The other two sides are of concern, but not of great concern. Any further questions or any follow-ups, Martin? Nope. Okay, Martin's having a bit of a challenge tonight with technical issues. Councillor McGill, go ahead. Yeah, oh, I'm sorry, Deputy Mayor. Mark, if you could just hold off. It was, I trumped you. Deputy Mayor Wilkins, please go ahead. I apologize for that.
That's okay. You could take Councillor McGill as long as you come back to me.
You go ahead. The chair wants you to speak now.
Okay, thank you very much, Mayor Mayhew. So Fabio, I know that the new Biggin Creek poses a huge challenge for us. Because of the site and location where it is, what other challenges are we facing? The location.
In relation to the creek, you said?
Well, I know the creek is certainly a challenge for us, but are there any other challenges that, you know, with the locations, cell locations or buffer?
Right.
No buffer, that type of thing?
Right. On the creek side, there are no challenges there at this point. We are not seeing any issues because we measure at the creek. The confirmation of that is when you take surface water at the creek and you see no impact on the creek, you can tell for sure that there is no impact, no landfill impacts in the creek water. That's how you measure. That means the groundwater that is traveling from the site into the creek, by the time it gets to the creek, it attenuates. Those contaminants don't reach that far. To the other side, to the left side of that page, we don't have a monitoring well, and we are sure you own several hundreds of meters to the left side. There are no issues there because you own all that land. And in 100 meters, there's a reason why the ministry requires 100 meters is because it works as a magic number that up to 100 meters, you potentially are going to have some issues, but beyond 100 meters, the experience shows that there is no issue. So with that being said, even though we are not monitoring the left side there, we know you're okay. And also the groundwater flow, it's towards the creek. Yeah, mainly towards the creek. There is a bit of radial flow towards the road, a bit to the west, but not much. And no, we are not aware of any other any other concerns other than the shallow groundwater that we see in the east and west.
Yeah, thank you. Follow up.
Thank you. Thank you, Fabio. Yeah, if I could, I have one more question,
Go ahead,
Fabio,
please.
if I could.
Mhm.
Fabio, what exactly are your thoughts on a phased plan approach to address the remedial actions?
Right. Yeah, what we recommend is you could try the first option that I had in that slide, which is try to negotiate with both owners on the either purchasing the land or the groundwater rights. And the reason why I recommend this is because it's the option that gives you assurance that you're going to be in compliance, immediate compliance. And the ministry usually accepts that. And in terms of price, generally is always also lower price as well. So essentially what would happen is if that goes forward is you'd own, let's say 50 meters towards or on the other side of Trillium Drive, for example, and another, let's say 100 meters on that forested area at the bottom. So that would be the first option. In case, again, if the case doesn't go through for any reasons, you don't like the option or the owners are not willing to negotiate or any other reason, you have options. Yes, that would be a combination of different options, including that barrier system that I mentioned that slide. The barrier system would be essentially a wall that you drive, you put on the ground that key deeper in the native clay, and that would prevent the movement of leachate. You're not going to be collecting, you're not going to be treating leachate at this point. It's just that wall that avoids leach. Yeah, it's a wall that just avoids or blocks the leachate to go to your neighbors.
Okay, thank you very much, Mayor Mayhew.
Thank you. Councillor McGill, please go ahead now.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. Could we see the map again? And then I had a question on that. So, okay, if the magenta circle there doesn't really look like the garbage was landfilled right up to the edge of Trillium Drive road allowance, or was it?
No, there's just 40 meter. There's a 40-meter buffer there
between where the garbage stopped and where the Trillium Drive road allowance started.
Correct.
So, and then Trillium Drive is what, probably about 22 meters, something like that.
Wide, yeah. So we are 60 meters, correct.
So we need another
You
40
probably
meters to get the 100 meters.
not at 30 meters or so is a good estimate, yeah.
And then on the other side of that, the landfilling went right up to the property line pretty well.
Pretty much, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. From there, would I guess your point here is you required a larger piece of land on that side because because the limit of waste is close to the property. Now, 100 meters is a ballpark here, Councilor McGill. It's a ballpark, and ideally, what we recommend is to confirm that you wanna put a well there and monitoring the groundwater quality, and if it's clean, you are in the right spot. If there is still some exceedance, you'd move that well a bit until you see no exceedance. So let's say the 30 meters by Trillium Drive there, roughly 30 meters that you'll be buying, could be lower. Let's say 10 meters only just on the, I guess, best case scenario. Or maybe even the road allowance itself is already enough for that buffer that you already own. And maybe you only just need a little bit. So it requires a bit of investigation there, right? We don't have that data, that information.
Thank you, Councillor McGill. Thank you, Fabiano. Greg, I see you'd like to get engaged in this. Please go ahead.
Yeah, and thank you, Mary Ellen, and to Fabiano. Just a couple things. One, the road allowance itself would be not 50 meters wide, but 50 feet wide. So like that's typically what that road would produce, would be what we own would be 50 feet wide. So about 30 feet or 60 feet wide, 30 feet from the center line of the road. But that's just here nor there. I mean, my question kind of piggybacks on Mary Gay's question. And, you know, when I've looked at this site right from the very beginning, and we have had this conversation as well, Fabiano, it almost looks like the site selection for the cells was based on the access going into the facility. If you know, if this was going to be reopened, would this be the same cell location area, or, you know, is there better ways to sell this waste moving forward in the future?
Right. Well, right now, the design and operations report shows a vertical placement of waste, keeping the same waste footprint that you have currently, and you just put more waste on top. With that being said, it's not a bad idea to actually expand towards the left side of the page, towards the farm field, because you would be away from the creek, and you are upstream of the groundwater flow as well. So it's something to consider, but right now what the ministry contemplates is only vertical expansion on top of the existing garbage.
Okay. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Fabiano. Council, any further questions? Yes, Councillor Cowell, go ahead.
Thank you. Through the mayor to Fabiano. We're not talking about remediating it at this point. We are talking about getting more land and removing the wells and putting them in a different location so that they don't breed the contaminations. Is that like not dumbed down, but layman's terms?
Yeah, and there is even a term for that. They call contaminant attenuation zone, CAZ. That's what the ministry calls. So very common, but essentially that's what you just said.
Perfect. Continue, please.
Thank you, Krista. Follow-up, maybe?
Yes, just one more follow-up. When you were talking about the compliance with the water requirements, I had a different note here. I don't know where I put it. Anywho, with the water standards for the ministry, because you had mentioned about moving the organic compounds and I think some of the carbon, which was associated with wood that had been burned, and that you had mentioned was something we might consider for remediation or potential. And so my question is, would that be something we'd have to do to get our water standards under control if we were considering opening?
Right. Yes, that would be a good practice. Yes. With that being said, I should say that option only helps a bit, right? If you just do that, doesn't mean everything is going to disappear. Now you're good. It's only a minor improvement. Let's put it that way. That's a minor improvement that we identified that would help, but not solve the problem. But yes, it would be a good practice. Yes, you do that, would be a good practice. It's recommended. And the cost, we didn't talk about that cost, but we said it would be included in there, but essentially that can likely be done by internal forces or relatively small cost.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. Yep. Greg, would you like to speak to that?
Well, just further, you know, and hopefully everybody did get this through Fabiano's presentation, that, you know, these two particular, the exceedance issue that we have and your plan moving forward are integrated here, and they're, you know, one does affect the other, and, you know, there would be some efficiencies associated with dealing with, you know, both of them. So Fabiano, can you speak to that a little bit? Just, I know we've had that conversation as well.
Yes. Yeah. We are talking different things here. Yeah, it's integrated, like Greg said, but one thing is addressing the exceedances. Another thing that we need to do is as a minimum, do the interim closure. That is a requirement. That is a given. You have to do it. No matter the quality of the water that you're gonna see in the wells, you still need to do the interim closure because it's a requirement, but not just because it's a requirement. It's also the current standards. You wanna have a clay cover there to help with the site, and certainly all those measures would be integrated and completed. Could be all done in one shot, in one construction event, or could be done after the acquisition of lands or groundwater rights is completed, or even in parallel as well.
Okay, thank you, Greg. Thank you, Fabiano. Council, any other further comments? Yes, Councillor Bartlett, go ahead, please.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. What are your thoughts of keeping that status quo that we have right now, just a transfer station? I know the wells still have to be monitored, but what are your thoughts?
That would be a question for me.
Yes.
Or Greg.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
for me. Yeah.
Well, for you. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. No, the transfer station itself, it's not contributing to this. There's no spills. We don't. Yeah, all the containers are sealed. It is approved by the ministry, and yeah, it's not an issue there. Actually, the ministry included in the approval. They didn't raise any issues. They put some conditions. For example, you can't leave containers full of waste for days and days or weeks. So there are conditions there to properly manage that transfer station. So as long as you do the proper management there, there are no issues.
Yeah, good.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Well, we're getting near the end of this. Council, last call for questions. Fabiano, the mayor always has the last question. It's a very elementary question. We've had some significant weather events this year in Southwest Middlesex. We've had 2 5-inch rains, and I think 1 3¼ inch rain, and those are significant rainfalls. Does that affect the monitoring? And some years, some seasons, we don't get those rains. We're dry in that area. But it has been an unusual year this year in terms of weather events. Would that affect this shallow groundwater?
It does. It does. Yes. Yeah. The more infiltration you have on top of the landfill, the more it's gonna flush those contaminants away of the landfill. And yes, the higher the precipitation in a year you have a very wet year, you're gonna see more. Yeah, you're gonna see more. If things are dry, it gets more contained. It's seasonal. Yes, there's some seasonality. Yes, but at the same time, the movement in groundwater is the groundwater movement, or the velocity there, is very slow, right? Almost like equalizes from one year to the other. It's not that you're going to see a direct correlation.
Okay.
Right, precipitation and that, and then let's say next year gets very dry. Now you're in compliance. No, you're not going to see that correlation. Let's say
I thought as much. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. It answers your question.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. With that being said, I want to just give you some additional information. That's the reason why the ministry wants, let's say, the interim cover there with clay to exactly control a bit that infiltration. That's the reason why you put the cover. And yes, still get more infiltration in wet years than dry years, but you have better control. You control the precipitation there, or the infiltration, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Just want to piggyback on your question to clarify on those requirements, or the reasoning why the ministry requires the closure.
Well, Council, I want to thank on behalf of Council and Jill, I see your hand up. Go ahead. Yeah.
Just very briefly, I definitely want to thank Fabiano. He's been really terrific to work with. He has provided Greg and I with lots of wonderful information and updates and helped us to, figure out a path forward. So I really appreciate the work that he's done. And I think we're expecting that council will want to be able to make a decision on this moving forward in the not too distant future. But I did want to say, if staff come back with a report on options for moving forward and decisions that you need to make based on the information you hear tonight, I just want to make sure everybody has their opportunity to ask our expert, because he's here tonight, but he won't necessarily be here at future meetings when that report is being prepared. So just make sure everybody, if you've got questions this evening, Fabiano is here to address them, but otherwise staff are expecting to come forward in January to say, here, based on what you've heard, this is some of the pathways to move forward and look for a decision in the early new year. And I also just wanted to note that I have put in a delegation request with the MECP, the Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Parks, to provide them with an update of where we're at, and just so that they know we are progressing and moving this along as they are asking us to.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor, I saw your hand first, followed by Councillor Vick.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. So Jill, that request has gone in for Roma.
Correct.
Yeah, I would like us to be able to put one in when the time comes for AMO as well with the same ministry regarding the same issue.
Yep, good idea. Councillor Vink, you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Allen, to Fabiano. During the report, you mentioned something about exceedances, and that we could not open the landfill site until those exceedances were in the right area. So that could take 2 or 3 years. Is that not correct, Fabiano?
Yeah, it's a reasonable estimate. 1 year would be too soon, probably not. There is no way you're going to implement everything and prove that you are in compliance. You need to implement the measures and collect data. That means 1, 2, maybe 3 monitoring events in each season, and then prepare that report and submit to the ministry. So 3 years is probably a more realistic minimum date that we can think. 2-3 years is the minimum date. Won't be a year.
Okay. Councillor Vink, that satisfy your question there? Okay, any more questions? Greg, one more? Yeah.
Just quick to Fabiano. Can you just give us your expert opinion on how long you expect those exceedances to exist with your experience?
If you don't take any action, you mean? If you leave, I think you need to put add some context here, Greg. One thing is, if you don't take any action and you still do the cover that the ministry is asking, that interim cover, that is not going to disappear. It is going to stay there for decades. Yeah, I've seen sites 30 years, 40 years, they're still producing leachate to levels that exceed. And the reason is because the property line is very close. But the moment you move the property line or your wells further away, and then you can see immediate compliance. So that's what I'm saying. You need to differentiate do nothing scenario versus the remedial action scenario that you can bring the site back to compliance, and you can reopen the site. Yes, you can reopen the site, but you need to address those and prove to the ministry that you are in compliance, and the ministry gets convinced, and they would be happy to open that, I'm sure.
Okay. Well, thank you, Fabiano. It's been a long conversation, but a very productive one. Council, we're certainly not going to solve this problem tonight. Yes, Deputy Mayor, go ahead quickly.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. I'll let you finish what you're going to say.
We're looking for a recommendation to accept the information from Fabiano and that staff bring back a report on our options going forward based on the presentation of Fabiano tonight.
I was going to recommend that, Mayor Mayhew. I'll make that motion.
Thank you. All right. And is there a seconder for that? I stated the intent of the motion or what it should be. Is there a seconder? Thank you very much, Councillor Scholdice. Is there questions, Council? And we'll look forward to staff bringing back a report. It will not be early January over the holiday, but we'll try to get mid-January towards the third week of January, and we'll see how they get along with that. And I know Fabiano will be close at hand should our staff and our administration need them.
Yes.
Okay. No questions? I'll call a vote. All in favor of the recommendation? Carried unanimously. Thank you once again, Fabiano.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and all members of council. Thank you.
Greg, we have the municipal office roof HVAC replacement, the tender results. Could you walk us into this?
I certainly can, and through you to council. Let me just pull my report up here. This report has to do with the municipal office roof replacement plus the HVAC units and the tender results that we just received for that particular job. A little bit of background, we did retain Trillium and Bissett, were retained by Southwest Middlesex to proceed with phase 1 of the ventilation upgrade for the building, as outlined in their report, which was dated July 13th, 2020. The work included the completion of a testing and balancing report of HVAC system servicing the building and the completion of a building envelope assessment. As far as the analysis is concerned, you know, from that building assessment of the HVAC systems and the roof, we basically took the plan to replace the roof, replace the HVAC units, which would give us and do some small building envelope mitigation issues, caulking, etc., window and door caulking, that type of thing. So that particular project was decided that that's where we were going with it. And I have included the report, the original, not the original report, but the report that I brought back to council, which, you know, once we moved ahead and we did get estimates, that particular cost went up. And at that particular point, I believe it was in September of 2021, I had gone to council and asked for, or actually it was in July, I believe, I had asked council for $55,000 more to complete the project. The project was tendered, and I'm providing the results tonight with Wellington Builders from Forest being the low bidder. That was $65,000 over the approved budget. That's specific just for the work. So when we look at the approved budget, it was $310,000 plus the $25,500, which made it $33,35,500. When we've gone to the market, the actual Wellington Builders price is $375,000, and if you base that against just the approved budget for the building, excluding the management fees, we needed to access $65,000 to move that project forward. It's extremely important that we deal with the air quality within the building, because we are deficient in many areas there as far as air quality and the movement of air. And the project will upgrade the roof and the HVAC system, and it will extend the useful life of those particular assets associated with the municipal office. So my recommendation tonight is that council approves the price of $375,000 for the roof and HVAC replacement for the municipal office, as provided in the tender results from Trillium and Bissett, and that council approves $65,000 from the provincial COVID-19 funding to cover the difference from the revised budget estimates. So this project has moved twice. One from the original numbers that were out there. Those numbers and the estimates were improved or increased in that report that I provided. And now that we received the market prices for this particular project, we now know what the market is telling us. So I do have that recommendation and I'm available for questions.
Thank you very much, Greg. And as Greg explained, the shortcoming will be derived from provincial funds that we received for COVID-19. Are there any questions you'd like to address, Greg, through the chair? Yes, go ahead, Councillor Scholdice, followed by Councillor Vink.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. I'm just curious, what is the total amount of provincial COVID-19 funding that the municipality received?
If Kristen's with us, she might answer that.
I am. It was 124,000.
Okay, great.
We
And-
do have, I'm
Yeah.
sorry,
Go ahead, Kristen.
that's
Yeah.
what we got specifically for that project, but we do have, surplus funding for other COVID funding that we could use towards that.
Okay, any follow-ups, Mike? You're all
No,
right?
thanks.
Okay, great. Jill, I saw your hand pop up there. Go ahead.
Sorry, Kristen adjusted.
Okay, no problem. Thanks. Okay, well, I guess we certainly want to get back in our building. Yes, Martin, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Allen. I was reading the report and I wasn't quite sure. Is there going to be further costs for the envelope of the building, or is this going to fix the building?
Through you, Mayor Allen, this will fix the roof, the HVAC units. It will remove everything that's up there and reinstall everything back on the roof. And we do have other areas of the budget that will address some of the building envelope issues. So those are located in the capital budget as well. So that's those are some of those issues were already approved issues or approved capital from the past that we're just moving forward. So there really isn't a financial impact. It's, you know, if it's replacing the inside ceiling of the utilities room, that was part of the budget that was approved in last year's go round, or it's actually a year and a half ago or so. So those will implement as well, but I don't see any major costs coming that aren't included in the budget.
Okay, thank you, Greg. So it won't affect the levy. All right. Yeah, I was just going to say that we certainly, I think we're all looking forward to getting our staff back and our administration back and our council back in our council chambers. And I think this may be a prerequisite to doing that, depending on how this pandemic goes forward. Any other questions regarding this HVAC system? I do not see any more hands. So there's a recommendation before you. Council, what's your wish? Did anyone entertain a motion that the recommendation be accepted? Yes, Councillor Bartlett, thank you for moving that. Council, I need a seconder. Deputy Mayor Wilkins. Council discussion. Questions to Greg through the chair? Pretty complete report, Greg. Okay, I'll call the question then. All in favor of the HVAC proposal, please raise your hand. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Good. I think that's unanimous. Thank you, Greg, very much. That passed unanimously. Andrew Neely, it's just about your turn now. Andrew, it's good to see you. Hope all is well. Andrew, you have 5 drainage matters that you would like to bring to the attention of council tonight. If you could please start with the Grover Drain. We'll start getting through these in an efficient manner.
Yes, I had intended on sharing my screen for maps, but I think in order to keep things rolling, I might save that for the next meeting. To begin with, the Grover Drain is an existing municipal drain that runs from just about Colt's Foot on Dundonald Road, and it runs along Dundonald, and it continues on to Main Street, and it appears that it currently outlets into the storm system in one form or another. Just to give background on this drain. Some further background: it was first constructed under an engineer's report in 1965. It provided an outlet for the farmland shown on the map. And it was then updated some in 1976 by the same engineering company. And it appears that it, as mentioned, that it's carried west along North Street and eventually outletting through McKellar onto Code Street, outlet at the CN tracks. So with regards to the analysis, typically the road storm water networks move water associated with road networks and are not used as outlets for municipal drains. As a result, the Director of Operations signed a Section 4 petition on behalf of the municipality, and the county engineer also signed the Section 4 for the County of Middlesex. So at this point, there is little financial impact. However, it is likely that when the time comes, the engineer will assess a portion of the cost to Main Street. So this is basically a petition to investigate the situation further at this point, and also presumably to redirect the Grover Drain into a better system that would not depend on the storm system that is within the town, and that we have already notified property owners that we presume that it will impact at this point. So it is reasonable that we could move to the point of council appointing Spreet and Associates to write a report to redirect the Grover Drain to the north of Glencoe, out of the storm system.
Okay, thank you, Greg. Council, any questions to Greg? Or Andrew, I'm sorry. Any questions to Andrew? Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah. I wasn't sure if you were playing with your dog or whether you had your hand up there. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, Mary Ellen. I just will add to what Andrew has already presented, because we did, as the road authority, signed this Section 4 along with the county. Really what it's there's some unknowns associated with this. So we are bringing water back into the town of Glencoe from outside of town. I mean, typically road networks aren't used for legal outlets for municipal drains, for one. And secondly, we just don't know exactly where this water is going. I mean, we do have information that would suggest it may be going this way, or it may be located, it may be outletting into the county tile that runs down Main Street. We just don't know, and part of that investigation will determine that. But certainly the reason the road authority did sign this petition was to see if this water could be redirected before it ever gets to town. And no matter, whether this situation is one where an outlet is, moving into a subdivision or down Main Street, it would help and or assist our storm situation moving forward in Glencoe. So that's why we signed on, and our goal is to, try to make the storm situation in Glencoe better.
No, I think it will have a positive effect, Greg. Thank you. And thank you, Andrew. Council, Andrew's recommendation is before you. Last call for questions. So we have a lot to get through. Seeing none regarding the Grover Drain, that the recommendation be accepted as presented. A mover and a seconder for that, please. Councillor Scholdice, a seconder, please. A seconder, please. Thank you very much, Councillor Vink. Last call for discussion. Seeing none, all in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you, Andrew. Lethbridge Road Drain, if you'd like to walk us through that, please.
Yes, sir. The background, this council has seen this already a few months ago. Just generally, Lethbridge Road is an open road that is approximately 2,600 feet long, and that it dead ends before it gets to the Thames River. This road is primarily used as farm access for 3 owners. There is a culvert crossing on the road over a fairly large natural water course, which the gradient of the land drops off very quickly on the downstream end. Large scale erosion happens during large rain events. Currently, the culvert is in need of replacing. However, a simple culvert replacement may not be the best course of action. It is reasonable to suggest that in a large rain event, if this was to be done, then it would more than likely end up in the lower river flats, causing the road to be impassable. As mentioned, that this issue has been brought to the council in the past months looking for guidance. Since this last meeting, there has been a meeting with the landowners in the area and municipal staff. As a result, the Director of Operations, Road Authority, and Brian Kelly, owner of Range 3S, north part of lots 18 and 19, has signed petition section 4 for a new municipal drain. Further to this, the owner of Summit Land and Livestock has indicated he's still in the process of working on the petition. This will allow the engineer to design the proper measures to prevent further erosion, and it would also provide adequate drainage for the properties that have installed new farm drainage. The financial impact, currently there is none. However, under Section 26 of the Drainage Act, at least a portion will be assigned to the road authority. So it is with this that I do recommend that council accepts the petition filed under 4(1)(a) and (c) of the Drainage Act for a new municipal drain, and that council appoint Spreet Associates to write a report for the construction of the new municipal drain, and that the drainage superintendent contact Sinclair Conservation Authority and other authorities to ensure legal compliance.
Thank you, Andrew, for that. Council, there's questions. Go ahead, Councillor Cowell.
I'd like to move the recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Bartlett. Questions? Yes, Councillor Vink, go ahead, please.
Sorry, Mayor Allen, I was going to second the motion. That's all.
Oh, that's good. No problem. Martin. Yes, Councillor McGill.
Yeah, through the mayor, I'd just like to ask Andrew, I have a little hard time understanding these maps sometimes. What are all the little triangles there on Hindman Drive? What does that represent?
Those, through you, Mr. Mayor, those are catch basins.
Okay, question answered. Any follow-ups, Mark?
No, thank you.
All right. Council, I think we're ready for the question. All in favor, please raise your hand. Passed unanimously. Andrew, you got a section 78 on the next one, the Mctaggart Drain. Can you proceed with that?
Yes, thank you, sir. The Mctaggart Drainage Works was last improved under a drainage report in 1957. It does not appear to be that there were any other improvements since then under a new engineer's report. However, I can say that there have been many patches done to this drain throughout the enclosed portion. And that under analysis, the council has seen a number of requests to enclose drains and to reconstruct drains, which we are faced here. There was a time that smaller portions of land that are cut off from larger fields could be farmed. However, now with larger equipment, that has become more of an issue. On November 15th of this year, staff held a scoping meeting with all property owners that were invited. At this meeting, it was clarified the Mcdonald Drain, which is upstream from the open portion of the drain, is in need of reconstruction as well. It is reasonable to carry out both reconstruction of the enclosed drain, which I have included on the map, and enclosing the open portion of the Mctaggart Drain, all under the same report. And with regards to financial implications, it is the road authority would be given a portion of the cost towards this under the engineer's report. And it is at this point, I do recommend that council appoint Sprete and Associates to write a report filed under Section 78 of the Drainage Act to reconstruct the Mctaggart Drain and to enclose a portion of the open drain as well.
Okay, thank you. Council, any questions to Andrew? Seeing none, the chair will entertain a motion. Moved by Councillor Schuldice. Thank you, Mike. Seconder, Councillor McGill. Last call for questions. All in favor? Carried unanimously. Andrew, 3 down, 2 to go. If you'd like to walk us in the Mills Drain, another Section 78.
Yes, thank you. This is a reasonably short branch of the Mills Drain that runs along Springfield Road. It is enclosed, and the last time there were any major works that were done to this drain was when it was first constructed in 1969. And there have been repairs that were done since then, but no any other engineers reports. So similar to other requests that we've received in more recent years, it is reasonable that this type of project is brought forward, that it has served a reasonable length of time, this drain, and it is no longer serving the people within the watershed. And it is at this point that I recommend that council accept the request filed under 78 to reconstruct the Mills Drain Branch B, and that the drainage superintendent contacts the St. Clair Region Conservation Authority and other authorities to ensure legal compliance, and that staff sends out notices or have a scoping meeting, and that the drainage superintendent reports back to council after all of this has been carried out.
Thank you again, Andrew. Council, any questions regarding the Mills Drain in the Section 78? Seeing none, the chair will entertain a motion. Please raise your hand. Entertain a motion. Councillor Bartlett, I need a seconder. Deputy Mayor Wilkins, thank you. Last call for questions. All in favor? Carried. And the Camplin Drain is the last one, Andrew, if you like. That's a Section 78 as well.
Thank you. The Camplin Drain was last improved under an engineer's report from 1979. It was an enclosure of a portion of the drain, and the actual branch A predates that report, and it is from 1969. There have been multiple patches that were done on this branch, and similar to other projects that I've just brought forward, it has served its reasonable length of time for its normal working process of this type of drain, and that it is at this point that I do recommend that, given the fact that There are 2 owners that are assessed on this branch of drain, and both of them are aware and have put in for this type of work on this drain. That council accepts this to reconstruct the Camplin Drain, and that we go right to appointing the engineer, Spreet and Associates, to write a report to reconstruct the Camplin Drain.
Okay, thank you. This is our last drainage matter, council. Any questions? Seeing none, you've heard the recommendation. Will someone move it, please? Councillor Vink, seconded by Councillor Cowell. Ample time for questions and opportunities. I'll call it. All in favor? Carried unanimously. Andrew, thank you very much for walking us through those 5 reports. That was a lot of work. You've been a busy guy. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of the evening. Any notices of motion, Jill? I don't believe so.
None ahead of time.
Okay, and okay, council, none coming from the floor. Correspondence and petitions, I don't have any. Unfinished business, there's none. New business, there were no items from the consent agenda, no addendums. County council and conference updates, county has been submitted already. Council, any announcements you wish to make pertaining to your wards or Southwest Middlesex? Yes, Councillor Cowell, go ahead.
I know I brought it up last time, but we had the night market and the Christmas tour for the businesses in Southwest Middlesex. And I just wanted to say another thank you to staff and everyone that was involved in that. It was a really chilly night on Friday, but we still got a pretty good number of people out, and we did our best to stay warm, and everyone was talking about how they would make it better next year. So I thought that was really great. And thank you guys. I think there was the mayor and Councillor McGill and the deputy mayor all made it out. So if you were there and I didn't see you, I apologize. But yeah, it was pretty good. So thank you.
Yeah, the street, the train station was a hub of activity, and everyone seemed to there was a lot of masks in the crowd, and everyone seemed to keep their distance reasonably well. And the vendors were well spaced out. Any other announcements? Yes, Mark, go ahead, please. Councillor McGill.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Mayhew. I've represented Southwest Middlesex and Newberry on the St. Clair Region Conservation Authority for the last 3 years. And then in the 4th year, Newberry represents us and themselves. And I just found out today it's going to be their mayor. It's going to be the representative for us and them on the St. Clair Region Conservation Authority for the next year.
Okay, that's good information, Mark. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, any more announcements, council? Yes, Councillor Vink, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Just a short note that I attended the Fire Services meeting last week. The highlights were that they're setting up a committee to purchase a new pumper, and they're going to go ahead with some renovations to their fire hall.
Okay, thank you for sharing that, Councillor Vink. Okay, I don't believe there's any other hands up. We'll move on to 15. There's no closed agenda. And the bylaws are before you. Bylaw 2021-110. Well, I missed the 2021-110. Bylaw 2021-111 be given first, second, and third reading and final reading. The appointment of a Ward 2 council, Bylaw 2021-110 and Bylaw 2021-111 regarding the confirmation of the December 8th meeting. Bylaws have been put before you and circulated to council. There's a recommendation before you. I'll entertain a motion to accept them. Councillor Bartlett, seconded by Deputy Mayor Wilkins. And questions? All in favor of the recommendation? Carried. Future meetings, there is certainly a couple coming up, a budget meeting and one more council meeting before the end of the year. And I'm sure staff will advise you in advance of those and give you the links. And council, that seems to bring us to the end of the page of the agenda. And the chair will, before, I don't want to preempt anyone, any other comments or inquiries or anything like that? Seeing none, the chair will adjourn the meeting at 9:06. And Jill, thank you very much. Greg, thank you. Kristen, I think you're still with us. And I know Barbara, you've been in the background there. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, Martin.